I made a flip comment before lunch started about investigative journalism not happening during the campaign, but that wasn't really what I meant. What I meant was that what happens during a campaign is the people you cover tend to get scared of doing it. You know, the people who run the country, the people who are running for office all get very careful, and the narrative is sort of beige, and nobody wants to make any big mistakes. But investigative journalism does still go on during the campaign. And do you feel that, in that regard, that these candidates are being vetted as well as they could be?
I think they're being vetted better than ever before, which of course causes them to complain about that.
Yeah.
Because you just go into everything about their backgrounds, which I think is proper for somebody who wants to run the country and have their finger on the button and all those other things. And we spend a lot of time on that. We dig also into their campaign contributors and their campaign contributions, and also we have various ways of testing whether or not they're telling American people the truth. We have the fact checker and other ways of looking into the things they say and do to make sure that they're being straight with their voters.
Are you trying to find out who the contributors are, for example, to the Clinton Library?
Yes, of course.
And not waiting for the Clintons to...
Yes, of course.
Are you close?
Yes, of course.
You are? Yes,
no,
of course.
are we close? I can't say that, but we're looking at everything that's relevant to whether or not you ought to be President of the United States.
How much garbage on each other do they bring to you that you then have to...
Every campaign, not just presidential, senatorial, city council, has negative researchers who find out all the dirt on the other candidate and then come and tell us about it. And sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. We look into it. Yeah. Sometimes it's absolutely false, or it's distorted, or it's not relevant. You know, it's something about their private life that has nothing to do with their candidacy for public office. And of course, the hurdle for that gets lower as you get higher up. For president, almost everything's relevant. For city council member, maybe other things that would be relevant for presidential candidate aren't relevant for city council member. But we try to check things out. I mean, the rule is a simple one. Is it true? If it's true, can we prove it? And if we can prove it, is it relevant to their qualifications for office?
No doubt you've met all these candidates, and on many occasions, and socially probably, as well as coming and talking to your editorial board in situations like that. Without stepping too far out of the confines of your role at the Post, how do you see these three candidates being good or bad for Washington, D.C.?
Good or bad for Washington, D.C.? First of all, I'm not going to state any opinions because I don't do that.
I know. I'm trying to let you off that hook.
As you know, I don't even vote for that reason. I guess if you're thinking about it for Washington, D.C., you mean for the community here as opposed to the Capitol.
You know, I mean, we who live here. And I mean it both socially and practically.
Right.
Because
it's been a while since we had a president who was really engaged in what goes on in Washington, D.C.
You know, the White House doesn't even have to be there, is the way it feels.
And that's been for a long time. You know, the Clintons have a history of being somewhat more involved in the city, I guess, than others. Obama...
up until a certain event in the Oval Office. And
yes,
then
that's correct.
Disappeared.
Obama, we just don't know. I mean, he's a relative newcomer to Washington. I've known John McCain for many years. I don't know what his, but we never talked about what his interest is in Washington, D.C. as a community. So I have the slightest idea. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the days of the Nixon White House, the Johnson White House, where they actually had a senior person like Joe Califano, who was in charge of relationships between the federal government and the city and really got invested in the city. And I would love to see that again, but I don't know if any of these three candidates would do that.
Do you think it's the modern presidency, or do you think it's security that makes it this way? I mean,
I think it's, you know, the presidency is very complicated. I think that, the bad side of the coin is that all of them run against Washington. I mean, even the Clintons in some ways are running against Washington.
I know.
McCain, who's been here forever, running against Washington. And so they can't be seen, I don't think, at least until they're reelected the second time, they can't be seen as being too cozy with Washington.
Like walking in a park or something like that?
Right.
But it, you know, when
But security's also a problem. I mean, it used to be the president
down Pennsylvania Avenue, I thought was just a terrible thing.
And it's harder for them to just go out and have dinner at somebody's house than it used to be, obviously.
Well, and it's in a couple of ways. It's just opening night at the Nats Stadium, because the president was there, just created an ungodly nightmare.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we can ever go back.
Right. That's why McCain tried to keep the Secret Service away for as long as he could, because he not only didn't want to go through that, he didn't want the people who were coming to see him to go through that.
But on a more practical level, do you think that any administration will ever be behind our having statehood?
Not necessarily. Certainly not a Republican administration, because this is a Democratic town. You don't want to give more votes in Congress to a Democratic town. And the difference between statehood and congressional representation, of course, is also a large one. Statehood would mean this was created as a federal enclave. Statehood raises the question of what should the federal government still have control over.
Yeah.
If we become a state, you carve out a federal enclave, as has been proposed in the past, that's still administered by the federal government for national reasons. Whereas having full representation in Congress does not require that we become a state. And I think that's where the focus is full representation in Congress.
Now, can you have an opinion about that? Do you?
No, I cannot express opinion about that.
Okay. Can you have an opinion on how you think Mayor Fenty's doing in pulling the city together?
I find him a fascinating political figure, just a fascinating guy. I mean, he is a nonstop campaigner. I don't know when he sleeps.
Apparently he doesn't need to.
Right, and he's always there, and he's, you know, anything happens, he pops up. Anything we do that interests him, he's on the phone, and he's an amazing guy. Now, we'll see if all that energy translates into good decision making or not. Did he pick the right police chief? You know, is Michelle Rhee going to be able to really succeed where everybody else has failed with the schools? The one thing he's done is give him full backing. He's really stuck his neck all the way out politically.
We've never had a mayor like that before.
No, that's interesting. He's not cautious at all.
Well, you know.
No, but I mean, that's, you know, that's, people will judge whether that's good or bad.
Do you relate to that in any way? Are you?
I enjoy talking to him. Oh, me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I combine a boldness in some ways with caution in other ways. It's hard for me to see that.
I guess I'll have to ask the mayor what he thinks of you.
Right.
How will you measure his success with the schools? How will the Post assess
Well, we asked Michelle Rhee that, actually, how she wants to be measured when she was last at the Post. And she said 5 years, and I think that's probably fair enough. But along the way, there are benchmarks. I mean, are they going to get the books in the schools? You don't wait for 5 years for that. And how are these? How are they going to resolve this middle school, junior high thing that's got parents all concerned? How are they going to close down those schools? These are measurable things as we go along the way. Her management style obviously is very forceful. And she wants to move rapidly. And while she says she consults widely, and I think she does consult widely, she doesn't wait always for the results of the consultation to come back before she moves. And I can understand why she believes that she just has to break this cycle of never getting anything really accomplished. But as a result, it means we're going to see a lot of decision points pretty rapidly. We'll see whether some of these things she's doing very rapidly are working or not. But certainly you got to wait 5 years to know if test scores are improving and that sort of thing, because it's a big, big ocean liner to turn around.
Do you live in the city?
Yes, I do.
Did you raise your children here?
I've had several different families of children.
Okay, and they use the DC schools?
And one set of children went to DC schools, yes.
And how did you find that experience?
It was fine, but it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
Yes. And it was interesting, you know, Dr. Rhee herself has children in DC schools, and when we asked her about what the parent experience is like, she had complaints as a school superintendent about how things went when she enrolled her kids and when school opened. She had complaints that she stated publicly there in the newspaper.
I remember talking to somebody from Verizon once who said they had to wait on the same tech support line as the rest of us. And I said, then I can't believe you haven't blown the whole thing up. But anyway, that's another subject. The mayor, he succeeds at the schools. Let's say he succeeds at the schools. What would you want to see him tackle after that?
Again, I'm not going to give the mayor advice or
tell
you advice.
Well, when you look at the city, what do you see as a gaping?
Well, I think the issues facing him are obvious: schools, crime, transportation, as revealed by what's going on with the stadium, and having development even out over the city. Obviously, what happens on the other side of the Anacostia River, and he's got some big issues facing him. What's immediately across the river from the stadium, for example, and now two new issues. Obviously, one will be the finances of the city again, as all the jurisdictions in this area are facing because of what's going on in the credit crunch and the credit markets, and home valuations. All the home valuations are holding up better in the city. There's still going to be a financial crunch for the city. And the other is development going to slow down? All these cranes we see out there, some of them are standing over building construction areas that are now stopped